Welcome back to Speakerstack Music. So in this video I'm going to show you how I've mixed and mastered an electro rock song in Ableton 12. If you're interested in checking out the song, there'll be a link at the end of this video, and there'll also be a link to a playlist where I break down the other parts of this song on a kind of video by video basis. Can I give you a quick blast of it so you can kind of hear what it sounds like? If you've not checked out any of the other videos in this series, you come into this cold. This is the electro rock song and it's called Jungle Shaker. Cool. So I don't know if you could tell from the song, there's two things I kind of hear when I'm playing it back. The first thing is that it's quite compressed, and then the second thing is that it's got quite a warm tone to it. And there's a reason for both of those things, which I'll explain when we come to the mastering effects that I've applied on this track. And I'm really happy with how that's sounding, and that's the kind of sound that I was going for. So mixing wise, there's a lot going on here. We've got a mixture of rock song, traditional rock genre instruments like a drum kit and guitars, and then we've got some more traditional kind of electronica instruments like sequencers, bass synths, lead synths, that kind of thing. 34 instrument tracks in total. Got them grouped and color coded, which you can probably see on the top here. I've just gone into session view so you can actually see the mixer part. A lot of panning going on, and I've not, in terms of the kit, I've not really approached it like how you'd set a real drum kit up. I've really approached it like how you would hear a dance track coming out of some speakers, basically. So wanting to pan, most of it's been panned centrally, as you can see on the things like the clap, the snare and the kick, which obviously is the right thing to do, as I'm sure you're aware. But then we've got the toms either side just to create a bit of space. We've got the hats either side just to create a bit of space as well. And I guess when I first started out producing music, the levels, the decibel levels of the song, of the instrument channels was how I kind of produced something. But obviously, as you start to look into using things like EQ, compression, that kind of thing, you realise that actually, you have a lot of control over the positioning of a sound in the mix through where you position it in the frequency ranges, using things like EQ, how far back you push it in the mix, using things like delay, chorus, and reverb, those kinds of effects, rather than actually the decibel levels. So I've kind of done the mixing as I've gone through, and there's not really much to say on that other than I like to have the snare cutting through, so you can see that's quite high. Toms are a bit lower in the mix, as you can see. Hi-hats quite high up in the mix, but again they do have some EQ on just to roll off that high end, so that's kind of compensating that. And you can see that there is some automation going on here with these pink dots on the decibel ranges for guitars. Again, because there are sections in the song where I just wanted to boost the signal. So she's coming into that kind of final chorus. Let's give all the guitars a bit of a lift, bring them out of the mix. And that's what I like to do. I think it works quite well. The other thing to say on the mixing, obviously, is that with the panning, where there are multiple takes of the same idea, so for example, we've got 3 lead guitar instrument channels here, so that's not 3 separate guitar leads all playing in together and trying to compete with each other. That's a single guitar idea that's been recorded 3 times in the same way to the best of my ability. Not always getting that right, obviously, because it's an art form in itself to play alongside what you've previously recorded with the same timings, the same notes, getting the notes bang on so it feels like a single note that you're playing when you play them together. But actually changing the tone on the Fender Telecaster that I've used to record into the song, and then panning the different takes, so having one centrally panned and then the other 2 panned to the left and right to give it that kind of stereo feel. And I've done that a lot through this. I've done it with the lead guitar, We've only got a couple of different ideas for the trans lead, sorry, a couple of different channels for the trans lead. But again, it's the same idea, it's just been duplicated, and then I've messed with the sound a bit, and I do feature that in a different video, and then I've panned it. And it's the same with the riff guitar, the RG123 and RG123 across here. These are two different riff guitar takes, two different riff guitar ideas, tripled up, okay? And the same with the rhythm guitar. So yeah, but then with things like the sequencer, you've got a couple of different ideas there. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how I've done the kind of the mixing. But it really has been done as I've been going on along, adjusting the sounds. And then at the end I kind of do a sense check of it all by dropping everything out and then building the track back up. So starting with the drum kick, drum and the bass, building the rest of the drum kit up, and then adding instruments slowly in and just feeling your way with the levels and just making sure that you've got the levels right. Awesome, so that's the mixing. Now when it comes to the mastering, obviously we've dropped all of that on the main channel. I haven't got anything running through the sends. I don't tend to do that, to be honest. I probably ought to do that more and look into it more. But again, I kind of think, well, there's nothing that can be achieved by that I can't actually achieve by grouping a set of instruments together and then putting that, parameter, whether it's reverb or delay or whatever it is, actually on the group channel rather than on the sends channel. So for example, with the riff guitars here, whole host of effects here, having them actually on the group channel so then it applies to everything in that group rather than messing around with the sends. So that's just the way I like to do it. So let's have a look at the mastering channel. Which is the main channel, and the mastering effects that I put on this. And I've put it back in, I'm going to put it back into arrangement view actually so we can see the song. So there, we're in arrangement view, and there we go with the main channel. Please ignore this first one here, which is the Restream plugin. This is purely so I can run the video capturing software that I'm running to record this video for you. So just ignore that. Then I have a Spectrum, which I put on every track, and the idea of this is I can just check the decibel levels across the frequency range. You're ideally needing to have something which kind of peaks around 100 hertz, because that's essentially where most of the energy of the track needs to be, and then tails off as it's going through the mid to high frequency ranges. On top of that, I have got a couple of compressors. So the OTT stands for over the top compression, and then I've got a standard multiband compression, and I'm going to talk you through both of those next. So I've used both of them because it's just simply kind of trial and error with this. It was kind of a bit of an experiment, how would it sound with both of them together, and I think it works really well. So why I've dropped in these what are essentially multiband compressors is to rectify something that was coming out in the track after I've mixed it, which was that the high end of the song was just cutting through too much. You couldn't really hear the lows and the mids. So I've dropped an OTT in and a standard multiband compressor in to rectify that. I haven't adjusted much on these, but you can see that the decibel boosts around the low section here on the OTT is higher because I wanted to boost those, and we've dropped off a little bit on the trebles. So I'm just going to talk you through what this does. So it's an OTT compressor, over the top compressor. It enables you, so think about normal compression, you're applying that compression and it's being applied to everything. A multi-band compressor enables you to differentiate different compression levels across your lows, your mids and your highs. So if you think about, you've got three sections, you've got a high section, you've got a mid section, and you've got a low section. Now you can set the kind of the top, well, you can set the level where the high kicks in here, and that's at 2.5 kilohertz or 2500 hertz. You can also set the level where the lows kick in, which is at 88 hertz. Now the mids, you don't need to set that because the mids are everything in between. So it's everything from 89 hertz or 88.4 hertz right through to 2.499 kilohertz. That's the mid. So in changing that, you kind of adjust the mid, if that makes sense. We've also got an input level. This is the decibel level before it is put through the parameters of the compression parameters. Fairly even distribution there. In fact, I actually think if you drop this effect in, you can find it up here in the suite of effects, and then go to audio effects and then click on multiband compressors. You've got your OTTs, you just click on it and drop it in. I think you probably get that level already if you understood. Yeah, I'll experiment and do that. Yeah, so you already get that level, as you can see there. I'm just going to adjust that back. We don't want that overriding what we had previously. And then you can set the threshold and the ratio and the attack and release parameters as you can with a normal compression. So the below is essentially what that is doing is that's applying upwards compression. So the more you increase that, the more it makes your quieter parts louder. But again, I haven't adjusted much of that. And then the above section is for downward compression, which is essentially it's setting that ceiling, setting that threshold bit that you would normally apply with normal compression. That's your threshold basically. So what it means is that it basically makes any louder parts quieter, and the more you drop that down, the more you lower the ceiling on that. And then you've got your attack and release. Attack is how quickly it kind of goes to maximum compression after it reaches the threshold, so how quickly it compresses once it reaches that threshold setting. And then you've got release, which is how quickly it goes back to kind of non-compression after you drop below the threshold. Now again, with these parameters I haven't adjusted much. Again, if I show you, if I just drop one in, you'll see that again nothing's changed there. But I have adjusted the outputs here because I wanted to boost the decibel ranges for the lows, to push the lows through in the mix, and then I boosted the mids and the highs a little bit there, but mainly boosting the lows. I've adjusted the output gain, I've adjusted the time, and the output gain is to compensate for any reductions in decibels that the compression has added in here. So we boosted that back up, adjusted the time to 1000%. Now the time scales the attack and release. So what I've done with that is I'm maximising how quickly it attacks, and I'm maximising how quickly it releases. Essentially, i.e., I am maximising how quickly it goes to maximum compression after it hits the threshold, and I'm maximising how quickly it goes back to not compressing when the signal drops below the threshold. Okay, and then the amount I've dropped down to 19%. So again, with something like OTT, you really just want to be applying it in very kind of careful doses. It's a really powerful plugin, which is why I've reduced it down. By way of demonstration, I'm going to show you what it sounds like if you boost that back up. So you can hear that's really compressed, really squashed down. So I'm going to put that back to 19%. Now the standard multiband compressor again is just adding another layer of compression to what's already in there. Again, if you can find this in the multiband dynamics section, click on standard multiband compressor, drop it in, and again you'll see that not much has changed in terms of what you'd get if you just drop the plugin in. I have revised the dB level on the downward compression bit to 25 in the upper frequency ranges. Sorry, other way around. I've actually done that to 29.5, and then I've actually changed the decibel level to 2.25 for the lower frequency ranges. I've adjusted the time to 1000%, and I've adjusted the amount to 23%. So if I just flick back to the preset, you'll see what differences I have made. There we go. Redo, apply preset. 100%. This is what you get if you drop it in. 25 and 7. But I've changed that to 29.5 and 2.25. So I'm going to give you another blast of it, and then I'm going to take these compressions off so you can see what difference it makes. So again, just with the OTT, those highs were still sounding quite tinny. There you go. That's with it. So again, it's just smoothed it out, made a warmer sound. And I'm going to take both of them off, and you'll hear that again, it's really, really high end and trebly. Just compressed the sound, made it a lot warmer, made it a bit more cohesive, taken out all that high end. That's kind of what I was wanting to achieve, and I think it's worked well. So those are the two multi-band compressors, and as I said, you know, I've dropped two in. I've used the OTT and the standard multi-band compression. It just didn't feel like the OTT was quite doing enough, so I dropped in the second one, and that seems to have sorted it. Okay, now we'll finish up by just talking about the fourth and final stock Ableton plugin from the Ableton Suite version of Ableton, which is Utility. But before we do that, I'm just going to show you the two third-party external plugins. So we have got an Ozone stereo imager, which is this one here, and if I click on that, you can see, open up the plugin. There you go. So this is available as a third-party plugin, and I'll show you the website where I got that from in a second, and you can go in there and download it if it's of interest. And I have adjusted the width on that to 42% to give more of a stereo feel in the song. So again, if I just play that and then take it off, you'll see what difference it makes. Okay. Just turn that off. That's refusing to go. And then the second third-party plugin I've put in emulates a reel-to-reel tape machine. So it's essentially the Cho tape model, or the Chow tape model. And again, this is available as a third-party plugin, and I will show you the website where you can get that from in a second, and I'll also post the link to where you can access it in the description for this video. And again, with this, I just wanted to give a kind of a more warmer feel, more of a kind of an analogy feel. That's kind of what I was going for, which is why I dropped it in. So I'm going to give you a blast of it and just turn that off and on, so hopefully you can hear the difference for that as well. Cool. Now for the move across again. Now for the Chow tape model, I haven't changed any of the parameters. So if you were to download this and drop it in as a plugin, like I have done, you're going to get a difference in the sound without actually needing to go and mess around with this. As you can see, it's a bit of a beast. I will do a separate video on this at some point. I dropped it in and it seemed to do the job. So I've left it as it is without actually going in there and worrying about it too much. But those are the two third-party plugins. And finally, we have the Utility, and this has been dropped in for two reasons. One, I just wanted to boost the gain, and then finally I've got it on bass mono, which means that anything that's under 120 Hz will be in mono and not stereo. So it'll apply to things like the kick drum, the bass synth, that kind of thing. They'll be in bass mono, which means that we just take out all the stereo information from those sounds, which is just going to stop things like phasing and stereo phasing going on at that point in the mix. And that's everything there is to say on the mastering. So I hope you found that useful. I'm going to quickly show you the websites where we got those two third-party plugins. So the Ozone Imager is by Isotope, and it's on www.isotope.com. I will post the link in the description. And then the Chow reel-to-reel tape model or tape machine is on Chowdhury DSP. So again, if you go into that, chowdsp.com, and then scroll down, lots of different plugins you can download, and it's about halfway down. And that, again, both of these are free plugins. So I hope you found that useful, and again, if you have found it useful, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel, and hopefully see you in the next video.